Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge with freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another and with our God. I'd like to open this Palm Sunday service with a prayer. Every endeavor begins with a first step and encounters darkness and difficulty along the way. We know the darkness of ignorance, of fear, and of tyranny. Yet we know the dawning of the light, the beginnings of hope, and the renewal of life. Blessed be the eternal power which inspires us to kindle these lights. Blessed be the source of light and of life. Amen. I have a reading today. It's from the Gospel according to Luke, the 19th chapter, verses 20 through 40. To set this story up, Jesus and his disciples are about to enter the city of Jerusalem to celebrate the annual Passover feast. He's at the height of his popularity. An increasing number of Jews are going so far as to claim that he is the Messiah whose coming has been foretold in the scriptures. The Pharisees, the Jewish authorities, are terrified that Jesus' arrival will bring down the wrath of the Roman Empire upon the Jewish people. Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem. Jesus went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. When he had come near Bethphage and Bethany, at the place called the Mount of Olives, he sent two of the disciples, saying, "Go into the village ahead of you, and as you enter it, you will find tied there a colt that has never been ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, 'Why are you untying it?' just say this, 'The Lord needs it.'" So those who were sent departed and found it as he had told them. As they were untying the colt, its owner asked them, "Why are you untying the colt?" They said, "The Lord needs it." Then they brought it to Jesus, and after throwing their cloaks on the colt, they set Jesus on it. As he rode along, people kept spreading their cloaks on the road. As he was now approaching the path down from the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of the disciples began to praise God joyfully with a loud voice for all the deeds of power that they had seen, saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest heaven." Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, order your disciples to stop." But he answered, "I tell you, if these were silent, the stones would shout out." When I was in my teens, our church youth group performed a reenactment of Palm Sunday. As one of the only two boys in the group, and the only one who was willing to get up on the horse they had brought along, I got to play the role of Jesus. My mother used makeup to help me look like I had a beard. All of us wore bathrobes over our clothes as I was led up the paved driveway on this horse toward the church. One of the elders of the church played the role of the Pharisee, asking me to keep the crowd silent. My only line was, "I tell you, if these people were silent, the stones themselves would cry out." Looking back, it was a lot of effort for a 2-minute reenactment. That story has always sort of stuck with me, even though at the time I really didn't understand what the heck Jesus was talking about. Stones don't talk. It turns out the stones are mentioned 218 times in the Bible. In the Old Testament, the prophet Jacob slept with a stone for a pillow and dreamed about the ladder that went from earth to heaven. The 10 Commandments, of course, were given to Moses, carved in stone by the hand of God. Moses also struck a rock with his rod, and water ran out of that stone. David collected stones for his sling, 5 stones, before he went out to face the giant Goliath. But given that today is Palm Sunday, I want to focus on the 5 stone stories from the life of Jesus of Nazareth. And for the sake of simplicity, I'll go in chronological order. First, there's the stone of temptation. The 4th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew begins with the story of Jesus having survived in the wilderness for 40 days without food. He's starving. At his weakest point, Satan shows up and says, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But Jesus answers him, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Now, as Unitarian Universalists,
we're not real big on notions of the devil and temptation. So what can we take from this story? First, you don't have to subscribe to any particular faith to know that temptation exists in this world. Sometimes we want to take the easy way. We sell others short. We sell ourselves short. Just as we all have a good side, we also have a dark side. Life can be hard, and it can wear us down. At these moments, things like our anger, jealousy, lust, or apathy can get to us, and we are tempted to give in to them. But we don't have to. We can hold on a little bit longer, or we can acknowledge that a setback does not need to be permanent. And we can remember that we have it in us to do better for ourselves and for others. Secondly, there's the message of not living on bread alone. It is a reminder that the purpose of life is not just to survive. It's not just about food and shelter. It's about nourishing our minds and our spirits and sharing those gifts with others. I know that is a large part of why I choose to come to this church. There's nourishment here. By way of analogy, I'm able to sample different items off the menu, as it were, by dining here on a spiritual diet from many different traditions. Next, we have the stone of forgiveness. In the Gospel of John, we find the following story. It's one of my favorites. Jesus is teaching in the temple, and the scribes and Pharisees bring a woman who has committed adultery to him, and they say, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. The law of Moses tells us to stone such women. What do you say?" Jesus responds somewhat curiously. He bends down and starts writing with his finger in the sand. When they keep pushing him, he straightens up and says to them, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone." And then he goes back to writing on the ground. Some scholars have theorized that Jesus was writing down their transgressions, but that is just speculation. Anyway, the crowd slowly disperses and not a single stone is thrown. Jesus is left with only the woman standing there with him. He says to her, "Where did everyone go? Has no one condemned you?" The woman replies, "No one, sir." Jesus continues, "Then I don't condemn you either. Go your own way and don't do it again." This simple story illustrates one of the pillars of Jesus' ministry, of his philosophy, forgiveness. When he tells the mob that the person who is without sin should be the first to throw a stone at the woman, he knows that none of them can honestly do it. None of us are perfect. We know deep down that our offenses could be written in the sand. Falling short is a part of the human condition, and because we all are capable of missing the mark, we need to practice forgiveness, just as we sometimes need to be forgiven. Next, we have the stone of wisdom. Returning to the Gospel of Matthew, in the 7th chapter, we find the following parable. Jesus says that everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rain fell, floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. This story may seem a little harsh upon first hearing it. Sounds more like the sort of thing that would be spoken in a hellfire and brimstone sort of sermon. But ultimately, I think it is a story about foundations. Jesus' teachings were about forgiveness, peace, and love. He spoke of treating others the way we want to be treated and loving our neighbors as ourselves. And he wasn't unique in that. These are teachings that can be found in some form in most of the world's religions. If we were to use this philosophy as a foundation for our society, what might the world look like? If instead we practice condemnation, war, and hatred, then our civilization would eventually destroy itself, just like that house built on the sand, the one that ended with the Great Fall. Our spiritual lives, just like a physical structure, work best when they have a strong foundation. And this brings us to the Palm Sunday story that I read earlier from the Gospel of Luke. Jesus and his followers entered the city of Jerusalem. The crowd goes wild. They lay their robes and palm branches down on the road before him. They think that he is the Messiah whose coming has been foretold in the scriptures. The Jewish leaders, fearing Roman retaliation, demand that Jesus tell the people to be quiet. He responds that even if he were to do so, the stones that make up the road itself would cry out. The message of the Palm Sunday story is that Jesus is letting the Pharisees know that the events that are unfolding signal something important, something that cannot be silenced. Think about this. Whether or not Christianity is one of the foundations of your belief system, it is hard to deny the lasting effects that the person and teachings of Jesus have had on our world. A 3-year ministry that over 2,000 years later has grown into the most practiced religion in the world with over 3.3 billion followers. Did Jesus know that entering Jerusalem was going to lead to his rise, his fall, his death, and the birth of a new religion? I don't know. He seemed to have at least some idea, knowing that what was happening was important enough even the stones themselves would call out if needed. Now, if you've been counting, I said earlier I'd be focusing on 5 stone stories from the life of Jesus. And you may have noticed I only did 4. The 5th stone is one that was believed to measure 13 feet across. It was rolled back from in front of Jesus' tomb. What will we find when it is rolled back? The answer will come next Sunday, Easter Sunday, when we return to in-person services. For those of you unable to join us, we will be recording and putting the service online. We will see you then. close our service with the words of David Rankin. Palm Sunday is found whenever we are serving a noble and unpopular cause with selfless devotion, holding to the ideals of truth and justice. Whenever we are seeking to uplift the fallen, to comfort the brokenhearted, to strengthen and encourage the weak and hopeless. Whenever we are working bravely and persistently in the face of abuse and criticism to establish more equitable relations in the world. Whenever we are sacrificing our lives on behalf of what we believe to be the service of love for all humanity. That is Palm Sunday.
Sunshine goes everywhere, its temple space, its shrine, the good Lord, its cradle throne, its ritual works of love.
This is Holy Week between Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday. We will be having online a Maundy-Thursday service. It should be available in the early hours of Thursday. So if you are so inclined, please join us for that.